Right, exactly. So I think some of those things really do help, and just learning how you deal with things, or and when one of the other skills is listening to what you tell yourself. And so, for example, the lady that she got fired, but that international corporation, her internal voice kept telling her, well, you're just not good enough to be here, and I guess they're right, and you're not worth anything, and you're just a faker, and you're a phony. Because that's all this, we covered all of this stuff with her. And I said, do you really believe that? She goes, no, but that's what I tell myself. And so oftentimes if...
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Infinite Abilities Podcast. I am your host, Nick Earhart, and we are here to encourage each other to find our own unique abilities. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kyle Swanson. I'm guest hosting for the Infinite Abilities Podcast today. I'd love to know what you guys think about me being a guest host for Nick. I am his business partner, and today I have the incredible Anita Petty with me today, and she has been featured in magazines and articles such as USA Today. She's doing amazing things, helping lots of people. I'd love to see what she can do to help you guys. So, Anita, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on today. It's really great to share some stuff. So my name is Anita Petty. I'm originally from Arizona, and I have a best-selling book called Money Switch, Flip Yourself onto Happiness, Health, and Wealth. And I do have a second small book for teenagers and such that helps them organize their lives and just learn some basics. So I'm a resilience coach, and I didn't get into resilience coaching because that was the thing I wanted to do early in my career. And of course, I'm a little bit older than most people, but approaching 60 years old, I have lots of things
you don't look it.
Well, thank you. But you start to feel it when you're approaching 60. Sometimes it's like the little aches and pains. But I started out over almost 40 years ago. I had joined the Navy, and I was a naval officer, and I was on flight crew status. And unfortunately, about 2/3 through my career, I developed a type of cancer that I obviously have survived, but it did take me out of my career. And so I had to start over. At about 36 years old, I was starting all over again. And, so we can go into more of that if we need to later. But, and then I went on to create a company because I had a background in computers and managing people with computers, created a manufacturing process that got purchased by a Fortune 100 company. And got through that. And then in February 2019, I had a major health meltdown that came right out of the blue. I was running on the treadmill, and about 2:00 the next morning, I was fighting for my life in ICU. I had what they call sepsis, and I don't, if it's from some virus or something, some infection I had in my bloodstream, and it nearly took me out. And the doctors gave me a very small chance of survival and said, I hope you have your affairs in order. Your heart is failing, your kidneys are failing, and your lungs you've got double pneumonia. And oh, by the way, if you do happen to wake up from this, we found a large tumor in your abdomen. So, let's just take things one thing at a time. And so that's what I was faced with. And I just remember drifting off saying, oh, heck no, I'm not checking out now. I have much more to do. In fact, I was in the middle of writing my book when this all happened. So that's kind of my story. And because of all the things that have happened, and I've lived a lot of these things, and I've learned how to come back, because resilience is just a review, as resilience is the ability to come back from setbacks, adversity, and failure, and then to rise again. So that applies to so many things in life. And so I help people, and I coach them through hardships, whether it's loss of a loved one, or they're trying to improve their finances, or whatever it is. No topic is too small, but if they come to me, I offer them help assistance, little tidbits and things that I've learned over the years. So that's kind of what I do. That's one of the things I do, but we can obviously talk about other things more, but that's really my focus today.
That's amazing. How long was your Navy career before it sadly got ended short?
Yeah, I was at about 15 and a half years. And so it was a choice. My treatments left me morbidly obese. And so it was a long story, but they were willing to let me stay in the Navy. But because of and anybody that's been through a severe health crisis, and mine was thyroid. So thyroid is a lot of women can develop this problem, but thyroid controls a lot of your weight, your hair, your skin and stuff. And so without that thyroid and all the stuff, then I gained a lot of weight. So they said, oh, you can stay in. But I decided to get out with the depression and all the things that I experienced. So 15 and a half years, and I elected to get out because the prognosis, if it came back, because it was not a good type of thyroid cancer. Most people have a form called papillary. This was a medullary type that was very aggressive. And they said, you have about 5 years if it comes back. And so I thought, do I want to be sitting on a carrier with no future as an aviator because I can't ever fly again? Or do I want to enjoy the last 5 years of my life doing something that maybe I want to do and just, kicking back? So I chose to get out. So I didn't have a retirement. And that was problematic, but that all took care of itself, over time. And it wasn't a big deal for me. But yeah, 15 and a half years is what I did.
Wow, that's incredible. So I'd love to talk about more or less tips or tricks, things that you have found that can promote resilience in yourself, either emotionally, physically, mentally, in any way, shape, or form, really.
Yeah. So it really depends on the person and what they're going through. And I would say the biggest thing is not to isolate and to sit at home and just hope that things get better, because sitting alone and not reaching out for help is not a good thing to do. So whether that's reaching out to friends, looking for somebody that can help you, that, clinical help, whatever your issue is, whether it's physical, mental, whatever the issue is, I think it's important to reach out to somebody and to get that mental stimulation. Because I think in resilience, in order to bounce back, you have to look forward and say, you're not going to bounce back and do exactly what you did the time before. You're going to find a different path that gets you back to where you were before. And it's going to look different. And it's going to have different people and different ideas. So part of that is stimulating daily with people that are positive in your life, that want to help you and can show you a way forward.
So you really like people to focus on more or less the community aspect?
That's one way to do it. I think that's what I did, and that's why I mention it, because it's helpful. I also did clinical work, a lot of clinical work, and seeking out things. And from the veterans' perspective, there are a lot of programs for veterans that help with issues like this, the depression that you have, loss of a career, or whatever it is. I've met some veterans, loss of a child, just different things that you don't anticipate. You lost your job, you lost your ability to do what you used to do, because that hits people hard. They have a car accident, or so I had one lady that got fired from her job, and she was making 6 figures starting with a 5, and she was very distraught. And I said, you realize you are not your job, right? And she said, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what my choices are. And I said, well, let's take a weekend and talk about it. And so she was able to figure out that the job did not define her eventually. But it's things like that. It's being able to reach out and talk to somebody, or seek some outside help for what that thing is. I know some people read books. That's fine. But I find that, doing something that makes you happy. If you don't want to be with people, watching movies or something to pass the time, and watch something that's comical or makes you happy. Of course, that's not going to be ultimate panacea, but just to make sure that you get the social aspect is very important, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love what you said about how you're trying to have that woman that you were working with try to show her that her job didn't define her. Because I find a lot of people do think that the things that they do, or the things they consistently do, or the routines are kind of what define them. Mm-hmm. Whereas you have to realize everything that you do it was new at one point. So it's actually a skill that you learned, even if that's procrastinating or something negative. That's why when you gain these skills, it is actually those skills that more or less define you, because it's something that you can have that nobody can take away from you. So that's why you'll see these millionaires or these multimillionaires make a lot of money and then go bankrupt and then go right back into it, because they already learned the skills to do it once, so they can easily do it again. So that woman making six figures, she already learned the skills to do something at that level, where now she can still use those same skills to get back to that level.
Yeah, absolutely. She did go back, and this is during COVID, and it was some misunderstanding over an email, and it was she worked for a foreign corporation. And after realizing, and she spent some time, and I'm not I'm a resilience coach, but I'm not a licensed care worker or social worker. So I recommend that people, if they're having some issues where they need to have professional help to do so. She elected not to, but she eventually went back. She was in a she had a PhD, by the way. So she was not a low end worker, but she wasn't a middle. She was up on the cusp of being corporate board material. Yeah. When she left the company, I said, I know you don't realize this, but at some point, somebody's going to see your worth and realize that they're not even going to take that into consideration if you work forward and you trust in yourself and you believe in yourself. And she eventually was hired by a U.S. firm. She's a U.S. citizen, and she is. They're really grooming her to be on a corporate board, and she's so happy and she's so ecstatic because she realized, she's like, okay, I didn't realize I had all these tools, and resilience gives you a lot of tools and things to help you navigate, because I don't know a single person on this earth that doesn't have some kind of issue one time or another. I don't care how much money you have, you still have issues there to deal with. The people that seem to be the happiest, we find out later in the headlines, were not really happy at all or had some extreme issues. So, just know that you're not alone. There's other people out there to help you with whatever that is.
Yeah, exactly. So it sounded like she also was in that foreign company, and she was gaining all these skills and getting all these tools and being undervalued at the same point, because it sounded like she wasn't on a board at the foreign company. Am I correct?
No, and that company, well, the culture that she was in was they had acquired her company, an American company, and it did not, they were accustomed to only hiring their upper executives from their own culture, if you will, and she was not part of that culture, so it wasn't going to really work for her, but she was there and she was trying to prove her worth. But it's strange that you have those experiences, and at the time you're in them, and I can think of so many things over my life when I've said, why is it this way? Why am I having this issue? And for those that are religious and spiritual, if you reach out and say, God, why are you doing this to me? I don't deserve this. Or why am I here? Why am I having this done to me? Sometimes those unique situations turn out to be blessings, and you don't know it at the time. For her, I think, and this is my own opinion, but her blessing was being fired by that company. And then they realized after they did an in-depth analysis, and they had never reached her. It was never face-to-face. It was all over emails, that they had made a very, they made a big error, because in her industry, there's very few of her, and they were wanting her back, but they didn't know how to get her back. Well, another company got her and said, we understand that your worth, and you come highly recommended. And she's making more money and very happy doing that. So, she's just one example of somebody that you have to have the desire to do it. I mean, some people get so low into their thinking and don't want to come out of it. So, part of that is asking someone or coming out of your shell to say, hey, I'm in trouble here and I need some help, and being able to, it's okay to ask for help. I mean, no one gets anywhere in the world and moves up and has a very good life without having people help them. It's not a one-man show.
Yeah, I love how that actually ties back to the community aspect that we were talking about earlier, because I was going to ask, or if you could go a little bit more in depth on, you said it's important to have people that are good for you around you so you can reach out and talk to them. So it sounds like it actually correlates directly with this woman that we were talking about, how she was around people that were, well, she wasn't around them actually because it was all virtual, but she was in the community of people that were not good for her because she was undervalued. And because of all that negativity, she even thought her own worth was less than what it was. So, like you said, it took her being fired for her to realize her own worth and then get into a different culture to get, well, I say culture, but
Right.
let's say like business, a different business. So it's a different community of people to actually find her own worth and realize that she is worth more than what she was at the prior job. And it's not like she changed, it's just her environment changed. So
Well, there was a couple of things. Her environment changed. It did change because there were people that realized her worth right off the bat and knew it. But she also changed to recognize that, hey, and because I told her, when you go to this environment, this new environment, everybody, no matter where you are, and most companies have to prove themselves, and you have to be there a little bit of time for people to say, okay, I see what's on paper, but let me see if this is what the person is. And I said, just do what you normally do. But part of it is having the confidence, regain that confidence, because she had a lot of confidence. I mean, she came highly recommended, and I had served with her many years ago in the same corporation, and I thought highly of her, and I said, you're going places. But when you lose that confidence and you think nobody likes me, and you have outside people that are competent authorities telling you you're not good, I mean, it's really hard to stand up for yourself sometimes and say, hey, I'm really a good person and I don't deserve this, or hey, I can do better, or hey, I can come back from this. And so that's why I'm saying why I use the either the social aspect, the community aspect, to have people that have probably been there or done something similar to what you're doing and are there to not be they won't be negative, but they'll try to help you out of where you are and to help you move up to somewhere where you can realize things, because it's a journey. Most people, when they have something devastating happen to them, it happens in stages, and they come back and try to figure out, how do I deal with the here and now? And I've seen some friends and veterans that have had suicides in their families, and it totally devastates them, and to see what they were before and to see them come back after a while and say, hey, I still have worth. I still can laugh. I can still have fun. But that's not day one. Day one is just, dealing with the here and now and a lot of tears and a lot of stress. And so, I see it as a journey, but a journey of renewal and a journey where you're not walking the same path again. As I said, from resilience is not the ability to bounce back, because bouncing back kind of means that you take the same path, but it's ability to come back from whatever your adversity, your perceived failures, and your stressors and things that have happened in life.
yeah, exactly. I love that. So I would say that improving resilience, one way would be to improve your surroundings or your environment. Because, like we were just talking about earlier, it's like if you are surrounded by a lot of people who don't value your worth, then there's no way that you're probably going to have the resilience to keep pushing and going and have that confidence in yourself where you can grow and expand and continue to, increase your goals, increase your yourself.
Yeah. In some respects, that's very true. To be in a positive environment is so important. And I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but sometimes you see the people that really, they see you and they want to just hang on and learn all about you and be near you and all that. And some of them are genuine, but other ones will just literally suck the life out of you. I don't know if you've ever had that experience, but they literally they're takers, but they're not givers. And if you go through that, I'm sure maybe people in the audience understand what I'm talking about. But the people that always take, never give back, never say, I had a supposed friend that said, hey, let me tell you what's happening in my life. And I'd give her all this advice, and I'd wait for her to say, well, hey, what's happening with you? And she'd go, well, I'm busy, gotta go. And I mean, it really, reciprocation and the ability to have people that care about you, or at least pretend to care about you, So in that respect, I think having people there that are positive and removing the negative. When I see somebody coming that is negative, I kind of go, okay, I'm not going to be rude, but I just go on, and I find, I don't involve myself in their life, or I don't
keep your distance.
Yeah, I mean, I have a border collie, and he's in service dog training, and I take him to the dog park. And then if a buddy takes their dogs to the dog park, that is in itself is a whole Peyton place. It's it's a sitcom, and a thriller, all mixed in together because of all the people that think they have the right to tell people what they should do with their dog. So, I have plenty of times I just keep my mouth shut, I smile, and I go somewhere else. But resilience is also, the ability, and I know you brought this up, the ability to build resilience. Well, how do we do that besides picking people who are positive in our lives? Well, what you can do internally is, a lot of us deal with stress. And, stress can be either negative or positive. And I know people go, how can stress be positive? Well, there's things like excitement. You get somebody says that a boy, or, hey, that was a great job. And you get those feelings, those great feelings. Well, those are still types of stressors, but those are actually positive stressors. But when people think of stress, they tend to think of negative stress, and you did something bad, or that bill you missed and now you owe a late fee, or whatever the thing is, right? Or you didn't call somebody that was in the hospital when you should have, and now they passed away and now you feel guilty. All these different things you tell yourself. But what you can do for stress is, one of the things is listen to what's called listen to the whispers. Like when your body is trying to tell you, like when you see something happen and all of a sudden your pulse rate goes up, or you start to get really edgy, and you listen to, what your body is doing, and it'll often tell you how you're dealing with things. And it's like, if you recognize those physical attributes, or the way your body responds, and then you learn to recognize that, hey, I'm not acting the way maybe I should. Maybe it's like, okay, like when people have a criticism of me, and I'm like, okay, people are like, how do you deal with that? I'll just go, thank you for bringing that to my attention. And it usually shuts them off because they don't have another thing to say. And I just go, that's their opinion. That's not mine. And they can't hurt me unless I let them, right? You don't let them in. And so you're able to
Nobody can make you feel inferior without your consent.
Right, exactly. So I think some of those things really do help, and just learning how you deal with things, or, and when one of the other skills is listening to what you tell yourself. And so, for example, the lady that, she got fired, but that international corporation, her internal voice kept telling her, well, you're just not good enough to be here, and I guess they're right, and you're not worth anything, and you're just a faker, and you're a phony. Because that's all this, we covered all of this stuff with her. And I said, do you really believe that? She goes, no, but that's what I tell myself. And so oftentimes you tell yourself that, and then you start to believe it, because here's the problem. If you tell yourself this enough times, we have automatic cognitive skills that kick in no matter what. And instead of us going, oh, I'm that bad person I talked about when I got fired, blah, blah, blah. Next thing you know, you're that bad person and everything. And your subconscious automatically steps in and goes, oh, you must be a bad person because this happened. You must, without even thinking about it, that's an automatic response. And so you get these, you get into these downward spirals of thinking badly about yourself when, it's not at all constructive, and it's not true, but it's so buried in who you are because you've done it so much, you don't even realize you do it. It's sort of like driving a car, and you got to go drive out to go get groceries. No one has to tell you how to pull out, how to stop at the stoplights, and where to pull into park. You just kind of do it. And that's what happens when you have this negative thinking and not being able to, recognize the things that are really holding you back from being more resilient and being able to move on with life. So being able to, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So after you figure out what those things are, you try to think of ways that you can tell yourself that first of all, you want to evaluate what those things are and ask yourself, are these things actually true, Or is this something that I just do out of habit because I've done it for so long? And some of these things might even be from childhood. And it's interesting if you go back and you do an inventory of all the thoughts, the bad thoughts that you think about yourself, and then you come back and you look and say, oh, that's grandpa's voice telling me I'll never be. I remember my grandpa asking me, why did you want to join the Navy? I have a nice boy. He was a farmer. And he goes, I have a nice boy from Mexico here that I can marry you off to, just say the word. And I'm like, Grandpa, I want to do something with my life. And he's like, he kept shaking his head. So you have these voices that you figure out what they are. And then you just say, no, that's either habit or it's not habit. And then you evaluate what's something better I could tell myself. And can I tell myself something that makes sense? Like, okay, things don't always go right. People don't see me the way I think I'm perceived. However, I am a good person and I can do better. That's just an example of something that kind of generic, you could tell yourself. And then when you see these things come up, because every day, understand you don't get fired every day, but you will face adversity throughout the day, little things here and there. And if you learn to actively think about things so that you're not letting that subconscious lead you down the normal road of how you've always thought, that's one way to get out of this pain and misery of not being able to come back and do and be what you were before.
Yeah. There's that's a lot to take in. I love everything that you're saying. I definitely want to. As soon as you mentioned people draining you, it made me think of we're kind of like batteries, like when you're around people. So there's people that will. Or usually this is friends, but this would go along with like business and other relationships and even personal relationships too. When you're around people that you feel like tired after like dealing with them, like it's almost stressful being around them. Those are like drainers. So like they drain your energy. Like after you're done conversing with them, even if it's on the phone, like sometimes that person that like they're calling and you're like, you dread it even before you answer, and that you're gonna kind of feel like crap after you answer the phone. So like those are the people that you want to try to limit your usage, like you mentioned before. And then I also like to say on the flip side, when you're around people like you for example, like we're on this podcast, we're talking, there's good energy flowing, it's like you're a charger, so like you're gaining energy, like not just you, but like together. So like you could have the same time of interaction with somebody else and actually be more energized after you're done interacting with them.
And I get my energy comes from seeing a person that's in need and seeing them be helped. In fact, if I can digress for a minute or so, last week there was I'm a veteran with PTSD, and I'll just let you know that. So I have been training. No, that's okay. That's okay. I'm dealing with it, and I'm perfectly fine with where I am, and I'm working on all of that. But here's the deal. So I decided that I qualified for a service dog, and of course, Veterans Administration doesn't pay for any of that. So I found a lady who is very good at doing service dog training. She used to be an agility dog competitor high up in U.S. competitions with her border collies, and she's now in a wheelchair with MS, so she's fighting her own issues. But we had a young lady there, 30s, was a corporate type, and she's had a horrible time with her. She has a German Shepherd that just does not want to behave. And we're to the phase in service dog training where you take your dog out to a place where the public is. So you put their harness on and they go, and like we went to IKEA. And so this woman was so apologetic to all of us in the parking lot because her dog was acting up. And she said, I'm so sorry to be a burden. And I said to her, I looked at the service dog trainer, and she knows my history past and what I do. And I said, you know what? I see a lot of myself in you. And I know you probably won't believe it, but I was where you are a few years ago. And you're not a burden at all. We value you being here and trying to make something of yourself and to get your dog trained. And we're very, very supportive of you. So you're not a burden. We welcome you into this group. And, I got a little bit of tear going there. But her first reaction was, and this is where I feel very good. She says, "Oh my goodness." She started to cry and she said, "I don't feel alone. I don't feel so alone." She said, "I didn't realize you guys thought of me that way." And so oftentimes it's just reaching out to that person to tell them how they're valued or how they're perceived. Exactly. And in her case, I know that she had a big burden lifted off of her because she could now understand that none of us, she had all these thoughts and, essentially mind reading and saying, "Oh, I know she's thinking I'm an idiot. My dog doesn't behave." And I'm thinking, "Oh, that poor lady, her dog is actually feeding off of her emotions." And I can tell exactly how she's somewhat feel how she's feeling based on how the dog is reacting. And I complimented, I said, "Hey, you did much better today. Your dog was less reactive and you're doing fine." And so, those are cases where you see the person with visual relief. They realize that they're not alone and they have options and they can always reach out to you and call you if they need to, or they know that, the big thing is to know that there's someone out there that cares and is not judging you. Because I know yeah.
It's so important. That actually does kind of bring up my next topic. It seems like you're pretty good in helping people manage their emotions. I wonder if you'd want to touch or go into that quickly.
Oh my goodness. Well, I've gotten actually better at managing emotions, but I think emotion is part of it, is part of where you are. And the first thing I want people to know, because I used to, when I was a kid, my family didn't show emotions, and it was kind of like taboo to say "I love you." It was very hard for us.
Why do you think they did that?
Because it's part of the culture at the time, and it was passed down from their culture. That's a sign of weakness if you say "I love you." So we never said that, and we sat around the table one day, and my mom says, "Tell your brother that you love him," and we would just giggle, and she goes, "You can't say it." She says, "There's something wrong with this family," and I always remembered that. So to be able to have emotional responses to other people was, kind of ingrained as a child not to do that. But I think the thing
is keep it in internal.
Yeah, keep it in, just stuff. And that when in 2019, when I had my health crisis, it was part of the stuffing it, just ignore it until my body said enough. Either you start listening or I'm checking out, So, I think the first thing to realize is that whatever you're going through, it's okay to cry. And, boy, I'm a crier. I'm a person that does that. And it's okay. Even now, if you got to get the emotion out, let the emotion out. And, it's okay to have the emotions. So I'm not saying don't stuff them, but learn to deal with whatever the trauma or the adversity was, to understand what that was, what caused it, and to reach out to that, whatever that trauma was, and say, okay, what exactly was it to me? How bad was it? Face it. And sometimes just even facing traumas can be very difficult for people. But being able to tell yourself, and I think that's one of the big things, and I'm not a trained clinician, so I can't tell you in that respect what they tell people, but I know the ability to not be so critical of oneself. So I know oftentimes when somebody's in a bad situation, they'll just talk down to themselves and say, you're not a good person. You did this wrong. If you had just done this, if all the negatives, but if you just talk to yourself, and even if it takes talking to yourself and in the third person or saying to yourself as the third party, disinterested party, hey, I know you've gone through a lot in life. It's okay. And I get where you are and you're trying to make a new start. So feel the feelings that you have. Let's sit down and understand what those are, and let's work through those. But give yourself a break and understand that, there's going to be another day and that you can come back from whatever this is. And I think that's the most for the emotions, because the emotions that are uncontrolled are the ones that are so repressed that come out all of a sudden. So whether that is tears, whether it's some people, it's shouting, they get explosively mad, they have, something just sets them off. Or the one that I fear a lot in town here, I live in Las Vegas, is the road rage, because there's people that
short fuse, anger.
They road rage, and I give people a wide berth because you never know what that person's going through, and just little things. There was a lady I met that got hit on all four sides of her car. Some lady rammed her. It was when COVID started and they started locking down, and she was terrified, but she knew not to antagonize this lady. And I guess they never found her, the one that did this. But it's people react in different ways, but they don't have a way to not get to that extreme. And that's, I think, where it's important. If you build that resilience will help you not to get to that extreme where you're screaming and yelling at a family member, or you're road raging at somebody on the road, or you're crying hysterically because things are so bad. It's learning
over something small that's usually out of your control.
Right. So I know there were days when it's like, I was just telling somebody, a fellow veteran the other day, we have hurricane, a tropical storm that's forming in the Gulf of Mexico, and I'm trying to sell a piece of real estate, and I can't because the buyer can't get insurance. If I had gone back 4 or 5 years, I would have been in total tears and saying nothing goes right for me. And I just went, well, it's not what I want, but it's reality, and let's just make the best of it and figure out how we press on and then go to the next thing. Because there's a book, and I can't remember the doctor's name, but it's a well-known book. It's called The Body Keeps Score. And I'll tell you, if not being resilient and not resolving issues. I wish I had read this book, by the way, 40 years ago, because all these issues that I've had over the years and my health meltdown could have been avoided if I had just known that, yes, the body keeps score. So if you repress those feelings and you have those angry feelings, or you're sad and you just don't have an outlet for them, that the body keeps score. And they eventually, when you get about my age, you start seeing them, and they're not underneath the surface. It's all of a sudden like, you have a major issue, or you develop a disease or something like that. So, our younger groups of people would be well advised to learn resilience and learn how to, just take things as they go. And I know we live in trying times. We live in the most interesting times and some of the most chaotic times. And it's hard to just say, hey, take a deep breath and move forward and not react. I mean, because that's a very difficult thing, especially if you watch the news, anything on social media. All of those things drive us to have these reactions and have these thoughts. And sometimes because we isolate in social media, I mean, just look around. I look around at the kids in the neighborhood, and they're all looking down at their iPhones and, all their devices, and they're not interacting. And so part of it is just getting back into seeing people. And that's why I say the social part is so important, whether it's going out and seeing your friends. Going out to, if you're into the bar scene, going out to see the friends there, or if you're in the church scene, going out, that's a social interaction there. But it all builds that resilience and the thoughts of that will help you, get to whatever that next level that you're trying to achieve.
So what are some of the things that really helped you get over some of your past traumas and things that you had to work through? Because obviously, with all of that, it seems like you have definitely done some things, because you're still here.
Well, I think it's that the attitude is the huge thing. And when the doctors tell me we're going to intubate you, and mind you, this was about a year before COVID. So intubation.
What does intubate mean?
Intubate means they put you on artificial respiration. So they stick a tube down your throat and they have the machine breathe for you. Because my heart was failing from all I had such infection in my system, my organs were shutting down, and my heart was going nuts.
Double pneumonia, yeah.
Well, and they never figured out what caused it, but and I just remember saying, "Oh, I'm not ready to check out," and my attitude was never of like. And when the doctor had told me, "Oh, you have a tumor in your stomach too," I just remembered saying, "You know what? I don't care. I'm coming back. I'm coming back." So I think it's part of it. The attitude is a huge part of it. If you're like, yeah, I'm doomed, I'm not, then guess what? And with my cancer, I saw many people I used to do the Lance Armstrong rides when those were popular. And I saw many people there that had less of a diagnosis than me, but didn't make it. And I'm like, what's the big difference? So again, attitude, the mindset that you take, mindset, daily mindset. And then of course, you hear all of this and you go, oh, it's all foof and people talk about mindset, but it really is on anything. And so, it's just believing that something can be. And I used to remember when I moved to LA County with my job, and I kept saying that house over there, someday that's going to be mine. And people would laugh at me because they said, yeah, there's just no way. They're not going to sell it to you. And those go so fast, it's going to be gone. Well, I was the third backup offer, and eventually it was mine. But just the thought, and some people just don't want to think and don't want to dream and don't want to say, in my case, hey, I know I can beat this. I know I can get well. I think part of it is just having that, the thought that anything's possible. And even though the odds are not there. So I did make it out. So I made it out of the stress and all my stuff. My organs started coming back. When I came to, about 5 hours later, I developed a very high fever. I was at 107. They were packing me in ice and they were afraid of brain damage. And I did get aphasia, which is, if that's one thing, and people asked about that. I wanted to mention that because it's how do you come back from that? So aphasia is, it's some brain damage that you have. And it's like being able to say, hey, you see this thing? So I've got a pen right here. And it's be able to say, can you give me one of those things that looks like this, but you can't think about what it's called? That when the brain doesn't make the connections, but you can still think. So for the longest time, I thought, oh, I'm not going to be able to make it back from that. But thinking every day, can I get just one more thing? Yeah. So learning one new thing a day, I kept saying, if I need to go, before I go to bed for the night, I'm going to learn one new thing, whether it's something esoteric nobody cares about, or, if it's something about the universe and just some, anything new that I could put in my brain and say, can you remember that? And can you say it back to somebody? And I tried saying things like that. So, you do what works for you. If you've got a physical ailment, for me, I used to be a cyclist, long distance cyclist. And for me, just to walk down the street and back I was so tired after my illness in 2019 that I could walk outside and come back. And then it was just a little longer and a little longer until I got back into writing. No, the other thing is coming back is understanding that you have to be realistic with yourself and be okay with that, because I'm not going to be riding the centuries anymore, the 100-mile rides. I'm okay with that. My body is, I'm just getting older, but understanding that there's things I can do. I can ride. There's a veterans group that we ride the recumbent trikes, and we have a great time, and I still get my exercise, and I love that. I used to be hiker, and I thought, my dream was to hike Machu Picchu. But the altitude with my lungs, because I have reduced lung capacity, I thought I can do that. But am I going to be comfortable and that's something I want to do? Or am I doing it just because I said I had to do that someday? And so I'm okay with, hey, I'll go to Peru and maybe I won't do that strenuous trip, and maybe cause an issue that'll, be a burden on other people if I can't make it. I'll take one that I know is within my capacity. And then if I do okay there, then maybe I'll think of doing that other thing. But it's being okay with getting there in steps and understanding that it's a journey. And if your ultimate isn't made, it's still okay. But, you do what ultimately makes you happy and makes you a person. For me, it's being able to give back, to be able to impart any kind of information that might help people in their journey. And so that's what I try to do.
Awesome. I love that. So I wanted to touch on probably one last thing. So that's it. I love everything that you were saying. That's like a lot of things people can implement like now to help things that are troubling them like now. Could you maybe dive into something that you've done or are currently doing to help things that have happened in like your past? I imagine with like your PTSD or other past family traumas. Something like that along those lines?
I'm trying to think what would be a good example. Gosh, there's so many things I could go into.
Yeah, I know journaling is very impactful for at least for myself.
So repeat the question one more time, please.
Something that you've done, so like in the past, or you currently are doing to help with these past traumas.
Well, okay, so one of the things I'm doing now for myself is because, you know, as much as I knew, and I was an entrepreneur and I had created a manufacturing process, sold it to a Fortune 100 company and was really a success. Once I had my aphasia and then I had brain damage, I told myself, you're a brain damaged idiot that doesn't know anything and no one's going to want to hire, and you're older too, so who wants you? This is what I was telling myself, but I never really acknowledged that. It was just in the back of my head and that tape kept playing. So this summer, some people said, hey, why don't you go back and look at getting your securities license? Because I've been doing my own stock trading and things like that. I have a life and health insurance license. And they said, why don't you try to be like an investment advisor or something like that? And I said, okay. And I really didn't think I could pass the test because realistically, for me,
you're telling yourself you're not that smart.
Yeah, the test wasn't that hard because I've been doing a lot of this for 27 years, and the questions on that test were things that I knew. However, this was July of this year I decided to do it. And so by August, I took the test, and unfortunately, I got COVID, and a version of COVID that I had for well over a month. So I'd just gotten over the COVID. I went in to take the test, and I sat down and I looked, and I said, question number 1, I have no idea. Question number 2, I have no idea. Mm-hmm. Question number 3, yeah, I haven't a clue. Well, in that they tell you that there's 5 questions they put in there randomly that are not testable and that are not graded. But apparently I must have gotten them up front, but those tapes started to play again and say, you're an idiot and you don't really know this and you're a phony. And, and then I said, give yourself a break, take a deep breath and keep going. Well, I passed the test. Of course, they don't tell you what score
really?
You got. Yeah. So I got the first.
Oh, it's either pass or fail.
Well, it's a pass fail, and then I've got 3 other exams. So I'm working on getting those because I know I can help people. And I know that that's a part of my life that I always thought maybe I should do, but too many other things I was doing at the time. So that's one thing I've done. As far as the PTSD and stuff, I've worked with people and I've helped people out, and I've been in programs where there are people with PTSD that are coming back and rejoining society, if you will. They're quite functioning, but they still want to do something else. And in their retirement, they want to give back and do something. So they do things like help at animal shelters and things. So I've sat with several people that are going through that, and I've seen how they've adapted, and I'm just there to be a positive person that can say, hey, and if they have questions, they can ask. But
and you do that yourself, right?
So I've been in the programs and helping myself, but helping also other people. And so I've been asked to help veterans, and I do a lot in helping veterans on the side, just understand what their benefits are. So that's a big thing in learning what is available to them and pointing them in the right direction. I think I get a lot of satisfaction from that.
So do you think it's almost like therapeutic or helpful in some sort of way for your more or less PTSD or your traumas for you to be able to help other people?
I find that to be the case for myself. I don't know about other people, but I do see that people, when they feel like, hey, they have meaningful input to society, it makes a big deal to them, and whatever that is. So yeah, absolutely.
Amazing. Okay, so we're approaching the end here. We always have one final question that we end with. Our slogan is your abilities are infinite. So Nick always asks on the end of the show, what does your abilities are infinite mean to you?
Well, what that means is, and I was asked this by a classmate of mine from the Naval Academy, because he said, did you ever go over to the dark side? And I said, are you asking me if I thought about suicide, and being depressed? I said, absolutely not. So, infinite possibilities, meaning is there's 0.1% possibility that you can succeed, go for it. Because the doctor told me, and he looked at me and he says, I'm telling you right now, you're probably not going to wake up from this. And you just got to know that's just your reality right now. And I'm like, no, it's not. I'm coming back and I'm doing this. And I'm going to put whatever effort and whatever energy I had at the time, because I had very little energy. I was just so weak. But I said, I'm putting any energy I have in this, staying in this body, staying in this life, and coming back, because I have unfinished things, unfinished business, and things I want to do to contribute to others. And that's where I put all of my energies. Well, after I dozed off, of course, I didn't have any control, but I'd like to think that that's, the infinite possibility thinking is being able to come back. Because my doctor was amazed. She says, you really shouldn't be here. Somebody up there must really love you a lot. And I said, well, I guess so. And I'm very lucky. And I appreciate still being here and being able to talk with people.
Amazing. I'm also very glad that you're here and I got to have this conversation with you. I think that's very, very important what you just said. I know I just talked to a different individual, Joe Burgess, and he had an ailment with a 99.9% mortality rate. So, and he must have thought along the same lines, I only have this 0.1% chance that I'm going to live, but I'm still going to take that chance and I'm going to believe that I'm going to live. And he was the 1 in 1,000 that survived.
Yeah. It might be a miracle. And I had a couple of people say miracle in front of me, so whether it's divine intervention or, just your guiding spirit, whatever it is, it's so important to have that mindset, whatever you do, and knowing that you might be feeling down for the day, but ultimately what's at stake here. And if you're wanting to be here and contribute, it's possible. It might not be the way you think it's going to happen. You might not be the person you were before, and probably won't be, and maybe for the better. But it's so important to have that attitude and desire.
I agree. Yeah. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I love everything that you had to give our audience. I do want to give a quick shout out to everyone that's listening. We are rapidly approaching our number 100 episode. I believe it's in 1 or 2 more episodes. All right, everybody. Remember, your abilities are infinite. Thank you again, Anita.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this show, please go ahead and share it on your Instagram story and tag me in the Nick Earhart. Also, go ahead and share it anywhere else that you see fit, because the only way that I can grow this is by you guys sharing it. I don't sell anything on here. I don't have any sponsors, so let's just get it out there by word of mouth and help more people. Alright, everyone, remember, your abilities are infinite.